The story begins with a notorious Nazi soldier named Heinrich, who is currently being hunted by his own comrades for being considered a traitor. The operation is led by Vaughn, a ruthless leader who will stop at nothing to capture Heinrich.
Hab dich, Lanzer! Ich will ihn leben!
In short, Heinrich was finally caught because he was outnumbered. He was then tried in front of his own comrades, and there Vaughn said that Heinrich had defected from World War II when Germany was overwhelmed. However, for Heinrich himself, the war was something wrong and unforgivable, and he decided to flee because he knew that his actions would kill innocent souls. He then said that Germany was a murderous country.
Irrsinn hier vorbei. Wir sind ein Volk von Mördern.
Knowing that Heinrich would not admit his guilt, Vaughn finally sentenced him to death by hanging. He was hanged by Vaughn's assistant named Dorfler, and then left alone to die.
Bisschen zäh und das muss man dir lassen.
Moments before he took his last breath, Heinrich saw the figures of his wife and daughter. He began to choke and his heartbeat slowed. However, he was suddenly saved by a farmer named Elsa. At the same time, Vaughn and his troops had entered a town in Germany. Shortly thereafter, Heinrich finally woke up after being unconscious for hours. There, Elsa and her brother Paul, who had Down syndrome, helped Heinrich recover from his injuries. They eventually got to know each other. Meanwhile, Vaughn met a mayor named Robert and asked him about the Lowenstein family's house. Robert then said that he had evicted the family, and all that remained of the house were ruins. Upon arriving there, Vaughn asked about the items inside the house. Robert said that the villagers had taken everything several years ago. However, Vaughn still wanted to dig into the destroyed building to look for other valuable items. On the other hand, Robert looked a little suspicious. He and his employer Sonia seemed to know something about the destroyed house. Meanwhile, Heinrich was having lunch with Elsa and Paul. He then asked Elsa why she was helping him, and without hesitation, Elsa said that she hated the Nazis who had killed her father. That night, Vaughn and his troops stopped by Robert's inn to rest. It seemed that Vaughn was more powerful than Robert, so he could do as he pleased. He also forbade civilians from entering the inn because he was going to use it as a temporary headquarters. As dawn approached, Vaughn ordered the local residents to dismantle the Lowenstein family's house, and it turned out that what he was looking for was the family's gold. Suddenly, Dorfler informed him that French and American troops would soon arrive in Germany. In addition, the soldiers were exhausted, and if forced to search for gold, they would likely struggle to fight the enemy. However, Vaughn did not care at all and insisted on searching for the gold. Vaughn then ordered Dorfler to get supplies and food. Meanwhile, Heinrich, who had just gotten up from his bed, immediately said goodbye to Elsa. He also thanked her for all her kindness. But before he left, Elsa wanted to ask him for a favor. He was very sorry that he couldn't help Elsa because he had to immediately find his daughter. He then told Elsa about his family, saying that his wife and daughter were victims of the bomb explosion, but fortunately his daughter survived. After hearing this explanation, Elsa decided to let him go, but before he left, the house was visited by Nazi soldiers. It turns out the soldiers are Dorfler and his troops who are searching the city for livestock. Dorfler immediately orders his men to capture Elsa's chickens. Meanwhile, Elsa, who is dissatisfied with what they have done to her farm, finally comes out with a rifle to threaten them. Elsa warns them not to take all her chickens because she also really needs them. Dorfler then admired Elsa's courage and decided to enter her house. Elsa told him that she only lived with her brother, but Dorfler suspected that Elsa was hiding something from him, and fortunately, Heinrich had hidden himself in the attic. Elsa reiterated that she only lived with Paul when her fiancé was away. However, Dorfler suddenly snatched her necklace, which made her very angry, and she tried to take it back. From the attic, Heinrich saw Elsa being raped, and unable to bear it, he immediately attacked the soldiers brutally. Unfortunately, Dorfler managed to escape, but Heinrich still managed to kill all the soldiers in a matter of minutes. After the incident, Heinrich had to take Elsa and Paul away from the house because Dorfler would surely report them to Vaughn. Before leaving, they took some weapons and other equipment. While exploring the forest, Paul suddenly wanted to return home because he had to take care of his cows. Fortunately, Elsa managed to explain, saying that the three of them would die if they returned home now. Meanwhile, Dorfler was being treated at the inn, and of course he had reported everything that had happened at Elsa's house. He became vengeful and was determined to kill them all, especially Heinrich. At the same time, Heinrich, Elsa, and Paul were resting near a campfire, and the three of them decided to take shelter in a cave near the cliff. Before going to sleep, Heinrich confided in Elsa, telling her that he had only seen his daughter once when she was just born. He was afraid that his daughter would not recognize him, but Elsa assured him that everything would be fine. In the morning, Elsa realizes that Paul has left, causing them to panic and immediately search for him. As they suspected, Paul had returned home to take care of his cow, and sure enough, he had been captured by Dorfler and his men. He was also tortured to reveal Elsa and Heinrich's whereabouts. After that, Dorfler also shot Paul's beloved cow and burned his house along with the bodies of the Nazi troops who had been slaughtered by Heinrich earlier. From a distance, Elsa saw her brother being kidnapped by Dorfler and screamed hysterically. Meanwhile, Vaughn still hadn't found the Lowenstein family's gold. He then called Robert and asked him where the gold was, but Robert pretended not to know. Vaughn thought that the people in this town weren't obedient enough to him, so he decided to hang Paul in front of everyone to make them afraid of him. Meanwhile, Heinrich and Elsa have arrived at the town where Dorfler's men have taken Paul, and they both see a crowd of people gathering. Shortly after, a priest forbids Vaughn from killing Paul, but the arrogant Vaughn then orders Dorfler to beat him. Seeing Elsa's eagerness to go to the execution site, Heinrich immediately stops her. The two of them then ask for help from a town resident named Irmgard. Meanwhile, Paul has now been taken to the church bell tower to be executed, and before the execution is carried out, the two soldiers taunt him, calling him a fool. Feeling annoyed, Paul then attacks them, causing one of them to fall from the tower, while the other is shot dead by Paul. When the commotion broke out, Heinrich and Elsa quietly entered the church. Meanwhile, Paul became increasingly uncontrollable and began shooting at other Nazi soldiers. But unfortunately, Paul breathed his last after being hit by Vaughn's sniper shot. Seeing her brother covered in blood, Elsa could not hold back her tears, but she could not give in to her grief for fear that Vaughn would find them. Outside the church, Vaughn threatens Robert and the villagers, saying he will shoot each and every one of them if no one tells him about the Lowenstein family's gold. But suddenly Elsa attacks Vaughn, but somehow without a single shot hitting him, and instead of attacking Elsa again, Vaughn somehow falls in love with her. While Vaughn is captivated by Elsa's beauty, Dorfler and the others choose to chase Heinrich. Luckily, Heinrich has a grenade in his bag, and afterward a shootout occurs on the roof of the church. Heinrich, who had run out of ammunition, had to rack his brains to defeat Dorfler and his troops. He then devised a strategy to corner the Nazis and throw grenades at them, and after which he jumped away to escape. Unfortunately, Heinrich was blocked by several soldiers standing guard below, and in the end he had no choice but to kill them quickly. He then had to face Dorfler, who was strong enough to hold him back. But just as Heinrich was dominating and about to kill him, the city was suddenly attacked by American planes. Heinrich took advantage of the attack to escape and hide in Irmgard's house because he was seriously injured, and it was impossible for him to fight all the armed forces alone. Seeing Heinrich's injuries, Irmgard immediately treated him and allowed him to stay for a while, because when she saw Heinrich, she was reminded of her son who was killed during the war in Italy. Shortly thereafter, the priest appeared after burying Paul. Heinrich then asked about Elsa's whereabouts and the main purpose of Vaughn's army being there. The priest then said that Elsa had been captured, and the reason Vaughn's army was there was to loot the Lowenstein family's gold. Meanwhile, Robert secretly goes to the basement to meet his two friends. There it was revealed that the three of them already knew the location of the gold. Unfortunately, Robert decides to tell Vaughn because he doesn't want his son killed. However, as he's about to leave, he's suddenly hit with a shovel, knocking him to the ground. The person who hit him turns out to be Sonia. Sonia then orders one of the people there to finish Robert off with the shovel. At the same time, Elsa's currently in Vaughn's room because she was invited to a romantic dinner with him. Vaughn then said Elsa looked very much like his ex, who at that time Vaughn could not marry because she was Jewish. As a result, Vaughn shot her dead and then kept the ring she gave him in his left eye. He then knelt in front of Elsa and put the ring on her finger. Meanwhile, the priest and Irmgard tell the story of the Lowenstein family, the only Jewish family in town. But because Hitler carried out a mass massacre of them, Robert also did the same to the Lowenstein family, a respected family who reportedly never harmed anyone. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Sonia had decided to take the Lowenstein family's gold tonight. They visited the grave and were about to take the gold, but they only found a book inside the coffin. Unexpectedly, it turned out that the gold had been taken by the priest and hidden in the church. Heinrich persuaded the priest to hand over the gold to Vaughn so that he could save Elsa. On the other hand, Elsa planned to escape from the room while Vaughn was asleep. However, while carrying out her plan, she accidentally saw a ring on Vaughn's finger, and out of curiosity, she examined the ring and found a hidden compartment with an unknown pill inside. Unfortunately, Vaughn suddenly woke up just as she managed to remove the pill. Elsa immediately pretended to seduce him and asked for a kiss. That's when she used her mouth to insert the pill into Vaughn's mouth and hit him in the jaw to break it. It turned out to be a cyanide pill, which ultimately led to Vaughn's death. On the other hand, Sonia and the others managed to find the priest and ambushed him with shovels. At the same time, Heinrich threw a lump of gold into the inn to lure Dorfler out. And there Heinrich said that he would give all the gold if Dorfler would free Elsa. Dorfler then went to check on Elsa, but when he went to his superior's room, he was very shocked because Vaughn was dead and Elsa was not there. This situation was eventually used by Dorfler to lead the remaining troops for his own benefit. He then tries to trick Heinrich by using Robert's wife as a fake Elsa to catch Heinrich off guard and then attacking him.
Was soll das? Nimm die Jacke runter.
The sound of the explosion was heard by Elsa, who had just arrived at Irmgard's house, and it was seen that she really wanted to help Heinrich, but she did not carry a weapon. It was then that Irmgard showed her collection of rifles that she often used for hunting.
Den habe ich damit abgefangen.
Ich würde die Geschichte ein paar Nazi-Schweine jagen.
On the other hand, the priest was being interrogated by Sonia, but he did not budge even though he had been punched many times. Similarly to the priest, Heinrich was also interrogated by Dorfler. He even got a blood transfusion from Dorfler so that he would not die before telling him the location of the gold. The next morning, the priest finally takes Sonia into the church to retrieve the gold, and Sonia intends to kill the priest once she has it. Not long after the gold is finally found, but without them knowing, the priest has set a trap with grenades and managed to kill all of Sonia's men. Moments later, Dorfler and his troops also entered the church. He was very surprised to see the condition of the church was very messy, but looks, there are still chunks of gold left. Dorfler then kills the priest so that no one can stop him. After that, Dorfler ordered his troops to take the coffins to collect all the gold bars. However, outside the church, Elsa was ready with a handheld anti-tank rocket launcher, and she fired it at them. Thanks to her shot, the entrance to the church was blocked by a collapsed wall, and Irmgard took advantage of this to kill Dorfler's troops. After seeing the priest lying lifeless, Irmgard went berserk, even she managing to stab Dorfler accurately and nearly killing him. But unfortunately, when she was about to finish him off, she was suddenly shot in the head by Dorfler's troops. This then triggered Elsa's anger and immediately made her shoot blindly without mercy. Elsa finally managed to finish off all of Dorfler's troops, but unfortunately Dorfler was still able to get up, even though he had been stabbed. He then hit Elsa until she fell and then strangled her. Suddenly, Heinrich, who was previously seriously injured, was able to get up and beat Dorfler until Dorfler was seriously injured. He then put the gold nugget into Dorfler's mouth, and after that, they both left the church. It turned out that one of the Nazi troops was still alive and saw the gold nugget. He tried to take it all, but suddenly, Sonia, who was still alive, shot him dead. Sonia then took all the gold and fled the city, but unfortunately, her joy was short-lived because the American soldiers who had just arrived in the city shot her, killing her on the spot. At the end of the film, Heinrich invites Elsa to go to the city limits to meet his daughter. He is very happy because he can finally meet his daughter again. And after Heinrich and Elsa plan their wedding, the film ends.